A warm word of welcome on a nice, cold, rainy, I don't know if it's autumn or if it's a winter's, the first winter's day at Stellenbosch, but welcome to the second Division for Learning and Teaching Enhancement seminar. This is actually an event hosted by the Deputy Vice Chancellor. So unfortunately, Prof. Diresh from Jagannath cannot be here today. So I'm welcoming you on behalf of Prof. from Jagannath. But it's something, of course, also co-hosted in collaboration with my division, the Division for Learning, Teaching Enhancement. So this is the second of 4 seminars. And at the end, we've got one per quarter. And at the end, I'll do a quick advertisement of the third one, which I'm also very, very excited about. The purpose of these seminars, if you don't know yet, if you haven't attended any of these, is really to promote the scholarship of teaching learning assessments. And for that, we invite distinguished speakers in teaching learning assessment, typically our champions, our SU TAL fellows, our teaching and learning assessment awardees, and we ask them to share their research, their practice, their innovation, their experience about teaching learning assessment so that we can learn from each other. So that's just a brief background from my side and to welcome you. I'm now going to hand over to Nicoline just to give you some logistical arrangements as well as to introduce our topic for today. Over to you, Nicoline.
Thanks. Yes, good afternoon, colleagues, and welcome here. We walked in the rain, I'm sure all of you did in some way, and it's actually lovely. And maybe very apt for AgriSciences this time of the year. As Antoinette said, it's a divisional project, but it's also actually co-hosted or hosted by the Deputy Vice Chancellor. So from the CTL side, we do all the organizing and the admin of these sessions. So thank you to my colleagues for that. So just to keep everything in order for that, if you could just ensure that you sign the attendance register before you leave, please, because we need to report on this. Please complete the feedback form. It will be made available towards the end of the session. And then as you see, our colleagues here from Telematics, they're recording the session, so it will be made available on our CTL website afterwards. And there you can then also send the link on to other colleagues who did not attend today, could not make it, and who might be interested. So it's really building some resources around all these topics on our website. So at the end we will have Q&A. Is it good, or do you want people to?
No, perfect. I think.
All right. Okay. So Q&A at the end. Please keep your questions for then. So it's now my privilege just to introduce the topic of the day. So obviously you saw that, and that's why you registered for it. But I'll just remind you, because that might have happened a while ago. So Dr. Strever's Teaching Advancement at University, which is abbreviated as TAL, that is a fellowship project focused on identifying ways to integrate entrepreneurial and other future critical skills into a capstone project. The project was designed to develop a focused strategy in the Faculty of AgriSciences that could meet the demands of preparing students for the volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous VUCA environment that they will face as graduates. Although some departments within the faculty already offered limited exposure to entrepreneurship and related aspects, there is an increasing need for a comprehensive and focused strategy, also in line with the university's current game changer projects. This project of Prof. Strever also involved interaction with other faculties to learn from their experience, and has initiated a community of practice within AgriSciences to address this need. The objective is to minimize disruption to the current curricula while developing a shared resource for teaching, learning and assessment related to entrepreneurship and other relevant competencies. The project led to successful changes to one department's module descriptions to implement the capstone principle, and there our colleagues from academic planning and quality can attest to that, which is currently in process over 3 study years in the BSc Agri, Viticulture and Oenology program. The project's efforts are also complemented by an industrial engineering research assignment, which aims to develop a radar for competencies and technologies related to agriculture, which will also be discussed briefly. So it's my privilege now to hand over to Karen, who is the main organizer and who always negotiates with the speakers and prep them and look at the PowerPoints and all of that. And it's now Karen's privilege to introduce the speaker of the day.
Thank you, Nicoline. Good afternoon, colleagues. It really is a pleasure to be here and to have the privilege of introducing Dr. Albert Strever to you. Just in short, he's a senior lecturer in the Department of Viticulture and Oenology in the Faculty of AgriSciences, as you can see here, and he coordinates the innovation and entrepreneurship activities in the faculty. Although he specialised in and still teaches in viticulture, he's worked with INNOVUS and Launchlab, as well as in the Winetech Innovation Committee in promoting new business ideas and development in agriculture, have led to an ambition to specialise in entrepreneurship and innovation or technology integration in higher education. That is quite a mouthful. This also led to him registering in 2022 along with the first intake for the master's degree in engineering management students at Stellenbosch University. Dr. Strever is currently participating in, as Nicoline said, the Teaching Advancement at University, or TAU as we know it, fellowship program. Thank you. Albert, over to you.
As Karen said, that's a mouthful, and I've asked not only Karen, who scrutinized my presentation this morning and told me, like ChatGPT told me, that you need about 15 to 20 slides if you do 25 minutes. I don't know who of you presented 15 to 20 slides for 25 minutes. Most people are doing this, so indeed, that was my reaction as well. So ChatGPT eventually, past the 7th question, told me, maybe you should just do a rehearsal and see how long it takes, because I was interrogating that I'll never make it in, because I started with 66 slides 3 days back. I ended, I think, on 39, so that's why I was a bit hesitant to allow for questions during my slideshow. So some of it is going to be a bit like flashcards, but I'm going to try to guide you through quite a interesting journey. So hopefully the storyline also comes through in what we try to do. So the overview is just to introduce a few of the principles and also the scholarly aspects of entrepreneurship education, which might be familiar to many of you, but not to all. And then to just look at the current state of what we do in AgriSciences, talk a bit about my TAU fellowship project in the center of the presentation, and then small snippet of what I'm doing with my engineering master's assignment, research assignment at the moment, and some conclusions. So I think the preamble said that the university thinks that innovation and entrepreneurship should play a more central and distributed role in the university. So it's not strange to see it as one of the main game changers there. I think that I'm familiar with a little bit of a siloed approach to innovation and entrepreneurship. We have many units at the university that's looking at integrating entrepreneurship, not only in teaching, but also in research aspects. The opportunity space of community interaction, if you look at social entrepreneurship, I think we've not explored all the possibilities. So I like it when I hear from management also that the siloed approach will be more institutionalized. And that's why I think I could embark on this journey about 4 years ago, actually veering from the research career into something more to an entrepreneurial development career. And many of you will know that going from a traditional career at the university is quite a thing to do. So we can talk about that maybe in question time if you think about that. We had some help though. It was not something we did alone. And I would emphasize through the presentation the help we had. I did some work with the business school years ago on the 4th Industrial Revolution, and I knew some people there, and we've seen reports from Doris Viljoen from the IFR that worked looked at the agricultural domain as well and how things will change. So we started this journey last year in June to look at what is in the future for us, but also to integrate the fact that we wanted to, or we aspire to bring more entrepreneurship in to the domain of what we're doing in agriculture. But first, I think we were brought back to the table and saying, how do we define, as an agricultural faculty, entrepreneurship? How do we, which elements do we want to incorporate there? Because you will see, if you go in literature, you also see many definitions. It's like the term innovation. I think we've done in the master's course I'm doing currently, I think we saw over 280 in a systematic review definitions of innovation. So entrepreneurship is not that different. There's many definitions. And then what do we regard as something that's not in our scope? What should we not do? So we had these work sessions, or we had this work session where we could get some tangible outputs, but we also said we should focus it on different stakeholders. What will this mean to students? What will this mean for the faculty and for lecturers that need to incorporate this? But also taking in mind that we are serving industries. In agriculture, we are very close to our industries and we must listen to them. And I'll comment a bit later on the fact that we don't have a very clear competency framework, and we need to work on that as well. So we also said, or Doris led us in this workshop to say, what do we have already? We're not starting from zero. And I think many departments in the university will also say, we don't have to start from zero. We have elements of this. Let's see how we can augment what we already have. So we said also, because this is the future study part of the university, I said, let's look into the future. What would you think would be your, what would you be praised for? What would be your end result that you would envisage in 2026 if people say this worked? How does it look for you? And I think this was very valuable because we could reflect on some things. So I'll come back to the capstone project because this is where it originated. Thanks to some people in one of the work groups, some of them sitting here today, who actually sort of conjured the capstone idea up. It's definitely not me that come up with it. So this is a community project. And this is a report that Doris brought out with a few colleagues at the IFR. And the goal of that was to look at the future of employment. So it came from an industry perspective, saying what should we at university do to make sure that we create or we help students to be the right employees of the future. And things that came out of there was that the future of work is going to change. It's not going to look the same. Not pondering about the detail, the report is available there on the link, but basically summarize the skills of the future is a mixed bag. And interestingly, natural sciences, which is what we deal with, we're a BSc degree, is one of the elements. And even I think in the report it was listed last. The first things that was mentioned was soft skills, and I'll come back to that term because I think it's a problematic term. It was systems thinking, which in the engineering sphere we deal much more with than in agriculture, by the way. And technology integration, things like data management that many students are faced with when they go out in industry, which we don't, I think, spend enough time in undergrad on. So some definitions, not to go too much into the definition space, because as I say, with things like innovation and entrepreneurship, it could become an interesting debate as well. But saying that we know what competencies, or we should know what competencies are, I've put some references there. Otondere said that it's knowledge, behaviors, and characteristics or abilities. It's made up of skills, but it's not just a collection of skills. I'll come to the direction of, the definition of skills. It's not simply many skills makes up a competency. You need with that values and attributes. And I think that's something which we'll come back to, that entrepreneurship education can be interesting to integrate in. So an example is the ability to make a business decision, or something that you do in an agricultural sphere. If you have to make a big decision about establishing a crop or going into another direction of agriculture, another sector, that's big decisions. And sometimes it's to do with attitudes, it's to do with leadership and those things. It's not just skills that brings you to the decision. So skills, much easier I think to define, is those abilities to use your knowledge that we teach students in executions, and it should say performance of certain tasks, of certain specific outcomes that you want. So in business decision making, certain skills can help you execute that decision. Indeed, to also help you come to the decision, but in the execution it becomes crucial to have skills and a collection of different skills to be able to do it. So I give examples there, but A point I want to make, and this was made in a Forbes article quite recently, is that we talk about soft skills, and Pontefract said we should stop it. We should actually say that these soft skills form the actual bedrock or anchor of effective leadership through communication and problem solving and critical thinking and these things, EQ, emotional intelligence, teamwork. They deserve another label. Soft is too soft because they are becoming serious in the employment world. And I tend to agree very strongly, and I think we'll get to the point where entrepreneurship education can actually contribute to this world, because some of it, what we do, is serious games. It's not just games. So there's many, if you're interested in the scholarly side, there's systematic reviews left and right about even higher education and how to see learning outcomes with regards to entrepreneurship. And I'm moving to that because that's where we want to actually focus on what are we trying to teach students to be able to do. The one is, what this systematic review does is it separates it into two categories. Some students want to become entrepreneurs. That's why they will take a course like this if it's elective, or why we will actually have a direct outcome. That will happen, but according to my colleagues as well, this might be the minority. It's not to say that all the students will be entrepreneurs. But in the same course of this benefit of having more entrepreneurs potentially, we also build competencies. And that's what many of my colleagues, I think, when I reason with them about this, it's about the side benefits almost of teaching entrepreneurship. And that's what I will focus on in the capstone project as well. So not to delve too much in the definitions and the scholarly things about it, but competency here is again defined as a cluster of values, attitudes and skills within entrepreneurial competencies, and it includes different things than the previous definition, like time management, communication, marketing management, leadership, those kind of things. Idea generation is mentioned there. Interestingly, what I do in my master's degree want to do is environmental scanning, being open, not as students just, but also as lecturers to what's out there when you configure a course like that. That's something which I think is a skill that even our lecturers really need to look at, is how do you scan the environment, not just the known people that you talk to in industry. And my question is also, how discipline specific does this have to be? So many of these competencies and skills can be very generic and shared between departments at least. It doesn't have to be extremely discipline specific. There is a place where discipline specific application becomes interesting and important, and I'll refer to that. So for agriculture specifically, I have some articles that I cite here. To extract from that, Fitskoch, I think, put it well that entrepreneurship just taught in general to agriculture students is not going to be as powerful, because in entrepreneurship research even, the understanding and contextualization of what you want to do in what sector, with what skills, and with what outcome for the sector becomes important. So just to do a course with all respect to the courses we have at university, at EMS or business school, etc., for an agri student is not going to be the same than to contextualize some aspects of an entrepreneurship offering. And I'm getting to the motivation of why to put things in the curriculum and not just in the co-curriculum. So you can read there's competencies. This NIVO publication is specifically competencies that they associate with agriculture. So it's things you would read their personal strengths, resilience. If you're in agriculture, it's not, flowers and moonshine all day. It's a difficult space to be in. And many of these competencies become what entrepreneurship requires: grit, persistence, perseverance. And we had the privilege of having Professor Patrick Schulest, and I'll refer to the Forest 21 project now, but he said for him the underpinning competencies for agri-entrepreneurship, and specifically also in his context with forestry, is things like internal locus of control. Now these three first ones, if you want more information, that is his speciality. There's self-efficacy, motivation, internal locus of control. He's written papers on this. And we will focus also, when we work with him, on those three first aspects. But things like persistence, commitment, persuasion. If you're in entrepreneurship, to persuade somebody to read your thesis, it's even a thing that I think researchers can benefit from. In many ways, and the statement on the right there is for me a very important one. It's a personal opinion that we've spent a whole day with Prof. Schulest when he was here from Finland. And he said, in many ways, these competencies are needed regardless of the career path a student follows. It's not because you become an entrepreneur or because you become a consultant or you become a researcher or a scientist. Some of these things will be very, very necessary. So to go a little bit outside our ecosystem of agriculture, we also talked to the accountants, and thanks for Greta for sending some slides. But the point I want to make with the next 3 slides is just that the accountants have very, very specific rules and very specific frameworks. In the SAICA, my wife is an accountant, so she knows SAICA and she's a professional accountant. So even at second year level, you know what you're going to look like as a professional accountant. Agriculture, we cannot say the same. This is revised yearly, new competencies are added. The actual framework of that is adapted to the workplace. I think it's a bit strict, I think some of the accounting lecturers think that as well, but it's actually a good place for a lecturer to know what should we actually address as well. Engineers also have that. It's more the industry body, that EXA, that actually prescribes that. Some engineers tell me that this is not as prescriptive. You can move within the framework of things and they don't enforce it every year, but still a useful framework to work from. And this is something I think is a shortcoming in agriculture. We don't have that. We have loose-lying industry bodies or people that do training in the industry or CPD type of actions, but there's no competency framework for a forester or for a winemaker. And this is something I think we need as lecturers to be able to teach other things as well, not just the core scientific subjects. So we asked a few questions, and the same things that I get from my colleagues is, should we do it? How much should we do? Is it inside the curriculum? Is it in co-curriculum? Who's going to present it? It's a very popular question because we are, we have a workload. You got that today, hopefully. So our faculty manager is asking us surveys on our workload, so to see where we are moving, and we're all under pressure. So the question is legitimate. Who's going to do this if we add extra things? I will offer a solution for that because I've taken on a TAL fellowship, a master's degree, and I teach 3 modules, 4 or 5. I answered Michael John, I think it's 6 now. I do it, and I do it out of love for all the things I do, and I don't think I'm over-committed, actually. I can actually save some time for certain things. But it's about love for it and finding a way to do it efficiently. Because if you don't use the partnerships you have, we don't also have to do everything ourselves. We should build networks and partnerships. The question of hybrid or fully online, I think it's a mixed bag. We cannot use just one format of doing things anymore. Cannot be just face-to-face in our classrooms. We have to supplement the experience sphere of the lecturer and the student with the online tools we have, especially here, because there are many tools out there. And then the question of who are the partners. We have many networks at the university where we're actually quite privileged to have an INNOVUS and a business school that focuses on entrepreneurial aspects, etc. So if I didn't convince you yet, there are many benefits of putting it in the curricula, and I want to just ponder about that for 1 minute, is that there are overlapping competencies and outcomes. So firstly, awareness with students in, for instance, wine science, what business types are there? I mean, they never learn that. They're not in a business course. So in entrepreneurship, I teach them about social entrepreneurism, lifestyle entrepreneurism. You can have a lifestyle business. Many of the wineries out there are actually lifestyle businesses. They don't make money, even in Stellenbosch. So different types of entrepreneurship teaches them about different types of business. So analogy there. Group work, problem solving, you will see now in the capstone, they go from individual ideas into groups. And then they have to fight about what do they think is the best and how do they put it into reality. And then case studies. We try to impregnate the course with absolutely things from their course. So if it's about wine, it's about which ideas we can actually execute that has something to do with something they study. Micro-oxygenation in wine, how do you do that? How do you execute it in a business? For instance, take very subject-specific things without dumbing down the theory that they learn in the parallel courses. And then integrating new techniques, and I can't emphasize the opportunity space here more. I use AI tools now to do business idea discovery. They can do ChatGPT left, right, and center. I tell them even how can you start a business using AI, which is a popular TikTok video in their environment. And then you also can use this for assessment, for explorative purposes. I'm lucky to also be in the capstone project. We do our literature reviews and our literature exploration with this course. It's in the same module. So I used AI tools for both the business work and also for the literature exploration. If you're interested to hear how we're doing that, you can also talk about that in another forum. So what do? We have learned from other faculties what they do. I've talked to EMS, we've talked to engineering. We had a joint offering with science, which we had a winter school crash course on entrepreneurship. In our faculty, we didn't start at zero. We have a new product development course in food science, which has been running, I think, for 12 years. So it's very well implemented, but not with a business objective. It's for product development. So we can easily change the mindsets there. Genetics have done this other non-biological aspects of genetics, which is still very great course that students do. We had some students that have electives with EMS on entrepreneurship, and then we had this Future of Wine course. And then in addition to that, we are now working with Forest 21 to implement more of the elements of entrepreneurship into the forestry department, which I think is a great project because it's 5 partners from all over. It's not just Stellenbosch that's involved, other universities and units working on forestry, and then there's also 3 European partners. And they bring that European perspective, which for them this is old news. This is not something new. Their school system is more advanced in entrepreneurial education than our universities are. So they can teach us a lot in terms of implementation, but we can't just implement their things here. We have to customize it for our own purpose. The nice thing is that we had Prof. Patrick Schulest on contract for this Forest 21 project, making a lot of material, videos. There's sessions on introduction to entrepreneurship, and this is material that lecturers can use to become acquainted with how in forestry do we actually tackle this. I've looked through most of the videos, and it's actually an excellent resource, not just for forestry, it can be wide in the faculty used, and even wider than that. So the entrepreneurial process, it runs through developing a mindset, which is an important thing to start to do, to spark the interest of the students and the lecturer. And then session 4 to 7, more the enterprise, the actual ecosystem. So in Future of Wine, coming now to the capstone and the reason why we wanted to change things, we used the principles of design thinking, which is something I've learned with the Launchlab and with the team there as a mentor. Customer discovery, those type of disciplines or elements we bring in. We built subject-specific material from open source courseware from MIT. It's available. You can customize the slideshow. You just need to acknowledge the fact that it's MIT material. And it's based on, this is what engineering uses as well in their 4th year entrepreneurship course, based on Bill O'Leigh's book on disciplined entrepreneurship. They even prescribed the book to the students. So, and then supplemented by inputs from our ecosystem, from Patrick Schulest, from Altu. There's supplemental work that can come into this offering. And we had this professor also from England coming with the winter school to bring us some marketing material that we could use in our courses. How did it look before the capstone? We said it was a crash course. My 4th years came from internship and they went into this course. Out of winter school, it was very intense. We learned from ideation, making your own individual ideas. You have 60,000 Rand in 6 months and you have to execute on a wine industry relevant idea. To group formation, in that 6 weeks, after about 2 weeks, they form a group, try to amalgamate their ideas, filter them with our help, of course, and then they pitch at the end of the 6 weeks. Very intensive. The comment from the students and some lecturers and colleagues says this is too intense, number one. Number two is you need to capture students earlier because they can't make a decision now. If they were to become entrepreneurs, it's too late. Some students told me, if I knew this, I would have actually not taken a job next year. And not just saying it like they mean it. So it's too late in the thing. And that's why we try to say, how do we move it earlier? And a capstone type of project actually is a very nice way to do that. What it's defined as, and I still need to work with, hopefully with some of you, On the definition, it says from Ed Glossary, it says it's a culminating project, multifaceted assignment that serves as an academic and intellectual experience. Now, for me, it's a very loose definition, and I think there's many forms and formats of how you can do a capstone. Ours, I think, look different than what they do at the schools or in some government education opportunities. We do not intervene too much, first point, on the first year. So I think the transition from school to first year is a tough one. We only make students aware. INNOVUS is there, LaunchLab is there. If you have an idea, come and talk to us, but we're not going to train you on this in the first year. We take them from second year onwards. So you will see here, first year, it's a semester 1, semester 2 is 2 or 3 interventions where we tell them, we get INNOVUS to talk to them, etc. Then from year 2, we start building the capstone. So it's through the year, but also it builds from year to year. I'll show in more detail. The reason I show it like this between departments is we're looking for links between departments as well. Because in this process, if you find this cross-linking, let's say you teach something about marketing, but agroeconomics and viticulture, our marketing teaching can be very much the same. One is just wine and the other one is grain. But the principles we can share. We can actually try to share resources, lecturers, material, etc. And this is what we're looking for in a capstone, is to find these snippets of competencies and outcomes that we want to reach. This is how it now looks. So we've divided that fourth year, 6 weeks, into 3 years. First year, we do the ideation. Whole year, it's a 278 course, so it's a full year course. They do the individual ideas, and then they do basic principles of entrepreneurship. The outcome on the right-hand side is an individual pitch. We'll get them to upload a video of the idea. They'll make a portfolio of that idea, and that will be the outcome for that year. Third year, they have that same ideas, and then they go into a group structure. And I'm working with them now, so we try to do it flexible, but then I theme it a bit, so to make sure that there's some alignment of minds in the group. They then must get to 2 ideas at the end of the third year, and they will pitch those 2 ideas as a group. They will have a CEO and a marketing person, create a name for their initiative, and etc. Then they go out on internship. I make it part of this capstone because that's when they go and test their ideas with other winemakers, with other viticultures, and ask them, with a survey they can ask them, do you think this will work? Why won't it work? Will idea 1 or idea 2 work better in this group? The idea then is to come in the winter school, which they join us in July, only in the 4th year. They work for the first 6 months, they work in industry, to come with which idea does the group think would be the best one to then finalize. And they will then just put the cherry on the cake. I also use the 4th year to tell them more about technologies and things in the industry. And that's the capstone, with building up to a final pitch event. Okay, so going from the last slides, I'm finishing now, is just a little bit of a view on what I'm doing with the engineering assignment. My topic, just for sanity, I tried to make the topic of that the same as, actually very similar to this teaching fellowship. It's just a more systematic view and also a technological view on how can you integrate things into the curriculum in a very systematic way. So my idea is to use techniques of topic modeling and large language models, which is what ChatGPT, by the way, also uses, to look at different sources of information. Firstly, what's out there? Grey literature, hard scientific literature, patents, social media. What's out there about competencies in agriculture for entrepreneurship? On the bottom line, it's about entrepreneurship, but also looking at technologies. What is out there? Because many of our entrepreneurial ventures are about technology, new technologies, new type of opportunities. So for me, I'm combining those two. So literature, comparing also with techniques, what is in literature out there and in the world to what's in our curriculum. I sort of know what we will find, or I have a preconceived biased idea of what we will find. But to show that in reality and to make a statistical comparison, a text comparison of it, that is what I will try to execute. Topics. Does the topics that's out there in the world actually corroborate with what's in our curriculum? And I think it's an interesting way of using technology and AI to compare. But then it's not complete, because what does the industry say? We can say our curriculum is flawed or very good, excellent, perfect. And the world outside say it's also perfect, but the industry think it stinks. it's bad because you're not preparing for what we want. So the final will be to do a survey to show the instrument to the industry and say, what do you think? Do you agree? If it says it's flawed or if it says it's perfect, do you agree and why? And that's it, my conclusions. Try to be a bit tongue-in-cheek and of course elicit hopefully a few questions with my conclusions. I think that we underestimate the opportunity space of scholarly outputs in entrepreneurship education in other disciplines. And I'm now using the cliche of saying, we will find it, but we will find it in EMS or we'll find it in business schools. Why do we not find more of that in the space wherever we're operating? So it's a question mark, but I think I'm convinced that it's a space, opportunity space that I never used. I wanted to do research in wine and technology. I never thought there's an opportunity space of this, and I see a huge one that we could have a research group focusing on this almost full time. Second thing, this engineering view on things is interesting because this degree I'm doing is an engineering/management degree. So it wants to also cross the boundaries between disciplines, and I think more of that should be done across scholarly work also in the university. And the third one is now a bit controversial, but I think we are already, our students are ahead of us. I see it in AI. I've been brought interesting tools by students which they use. After I break the ice, of course, because they must still first become comfortable to tell me what they're using. But then after that, they come to me and they show me stuff that I've not known about. So I think entrepreneurship is the same. I got 2 second-year students that told me, my mom is an entrepreneur, my father is an entrepreneur, I will be an entrepreneur, what can you do for me? Not asking, I'm not sure about this, it's just time wasting. What can you do for me? And I couldn't give the answers except for, I will focus and you can talk and we can do more things than just in what I do in the course, because we can offer it. But how do you identify that? She would have never come to me if I didn't have any elements of this in my course. Last one, and it's just a final statement. I think we need to adapt in our education to also help students with transitions. First year, there's a lot of work on transitions pedagogy. Our group in Natal is looking at that specifically, but I think we're focusing on this first transition. What about the last transition? The fact that they know they're going to a very difficult transition to the workplace. And some of them don't want to work for an employer. What options are there for them? Are they convinced that they can actually do something with a group or by themselves? I don't think so, not yet. And how can they then make a meaningful contribution, especially in this country where we say that we should create jobs and not take jobs? We are not preparing students to create jobs, unfortunately, as a whole. I think some of us are doing it, but we should do more of it by enabling and empowering them to create economic spaces. And that's my closing statement. Just some acknowledgements. Thanks for Tao, of course, for the fellowship. We had some funding from UCDG as well, and AgriSciences, who looked the other way while I'm doing a different career path as well, which was what the dean said. He will look the other way for a few years and then look me straight in the eyes. And then Prof. De Toy and Prof. Zama, also our vice deans, that's very supportive. Anneke, who's more administratively involved, and then Maricel, food science, she's now in Canada, but we've done weekly interventions about how do we actually think about this in food science and my own department. Marianne Bester was actually the person that suggested the capstone project. And I hope I'm right, but I think that is where it originated, is that work group on June, and it started the whole thing, which is now implemented in the curriculum, Marianne. So I think that's a success story. And then Karen, of course, thanks for the opportunity, and everybody at CTL and APQ also for their support. And I just name a few people in the ecosystem that also helps and was free to give any advice. And I think that's the thing that you should know when you enter the space, is there's a lot of support, and there's a great ecosystem if you want to rely on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Albert. I've got so many questions and comments and things, but I won't start. I'll leave it to the audience. But I would just like to say that I would really just like to say that the way that you showed us how interdisciplinary work and networks and opening up rather than closing is really the way to go. So yeah, I'll stop there and then open up for questions, comments from the floor. You can just put up your hand and then I'll bring you the mic because you need to talk in the mic for the recording. Okay, Brand, laat ek net gou by jou kom.
Albert, we sort of stumbled onto this thing due to this other Forest 21 project, but I'm just wondering, how do you see selling this to the rest of our faculty? Because people don't generally just, think of it themselves. It need to have some, I think, focused selling.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think when you start to want to sell it, it becomes a problem. Whereas what I think will happen, and this is something which I mentioned actually, that schools and the students' ecosystems are doing a lot of effort on this. I think it's now part of the curriculum. Things like technology and coding is becoming more and more part of the curriculum, entrepreneurship as well. So the pressure is a little bit on us. We can sell it, yes, but the pressure is also on us to say, if a student now comes to university and there's nothing, or there's no awareness of, there's something else than just this career that you chose and you think you're going to get a job in. And especially now, I've heard figures yesterday about the employment figures, not in the country, but for graduates in the country. And that is shocking. If that's not part of the motivation to say, yes, you're a graduate with skills and with competencies, but you can do other things with that skills and competencies. So I think that's on the stick side. On the carrot side, it is saying to colleagues that this is for me, it was an extremely satisfying learning experience. I mean, I've done some entrepreneurial ventures. I'm not a serial entrepreneur myself, but it enriched the subject that I'm teaching as well, because now I stand in a viticulture class and I end up saying, I'm starting to talk about entrepreneurship or about AI tools or other technologies that you could use to make something from nothing. So the creativity space, how it enriched my rest of my. So I think that, and that's maybe a cliche to say the mindset, and that was when the dean actually told me, what should we change? What should be the one success factor? Or if we say that we've done this over 5 years or something, it's to change the mindset and the culture, not only of the students, but of the staff that lectures, to say we need to, and now I'm seeing the same thing now with ChatGPT and with all the things we are suddenly flooded with, is how do we react? You can have a resistance and say that this is not relevant, or only 1% of students are going to use AI, only 2% of students are entrepreneurial anyway, why are you wasting time? I've heard all of that. But then I ask, but what about the students that's latent? The ones that sit in your class that have huge entrepreneurial potential, but you never explore it, because you do not ask the questions, you do not spark the interest. And that was my observations, is that figure is much higher. There's many more students that's never gotten asked the questions, and that's why they never engage on that. How you do it to make it efficient, because many of the questions then is we don't have capacity. The classical thing I hear is there's no space in our curriculum, but then I immediately go and delve into, I'm not going to say which department, it's not on one of the ones I've listed here. And I said, okay, show me your curriculum. What are you doing? And there were things in there that I could tell you are archaic, that shouldn't be in the curriculum anymore. Why don't you just replace them? Get somebody from outside. It even will lighten the load on your current staff if you get, like what engineering did, is they got a serial entrepreneur that's retired, that had 17 businesses that he started, who said, I want to give something back. And he's running the whole entrepreneurship course. You know who I'm speaking about probably. He's running the whole entrepreneurship course in the 4th year of engineering. I think the lecturers have a nice time because they just anchor the course on Sunland and he does the rest. His PA even does the admin. Not record everything, but that's how it is. That's the reality. You can, through being creative, and that's what we're doing now. We're starting this afternoon with a design thinking workshop with Launchlab for our lecturers to start brainstorming. How do we actually do this with the least impact on your own working in your department? And indeed, I mean, there will be departments that tell me it's not for us, you know. They'll get to the party if they see the results in the ones that says it is for us, because there will be a change in mindsets, not only of students, but also of lecturers. But it's not going to happen overnight.
Thanks, Albert. Jan Petrus.
Thank you so much, Albert. Maybe Marianne should have asked it because she nodded vigorously when you spoke about the environmental scanning, which is such a critical part of, I mean, we've seen it now critically in the hybrid learning programs. You need to know, is this going to work? Is it needed? All the stuff that you say. Could you say something a little bit more about what you learned from this process on how important that is for curriculum renewal? Even ongoing, not just when we do new ones or whatever, and that link to the real world and the industry, because, I mean, that it's a very grey area.
So one of the cornerstone articles I'm using in my research assignment is a radar or an environmental scanning technique that a researcher has implemented in industrial engineering specifically. Now they've got a body of knowledge documentation, almost like the SAICA competency thing. But in their case, they have PMBOK, so it's project management, body of knowledge, engineering management, body of knowledge. And that sets out the elements and the topics that should be in a curriculum also. What should be in the body of knowledge of what we teach students? So they have this framework. And what this person, a scientist, did, and this is what I got to the topic modeling side, is to see what's out there. What does the body of knowledge say, which is mostly configured by industry and professional bodies, but also with some academic inputs? And what now do we think students should have? But he went one step further, and how do we renew our programs? So he put a roadmap to it. And that's what I say we as industrial engineers, I haven't graduated yet, but that what engineers' mindsets, they like this thing of technology mapping and then roadmap. Curriculum, that was just applied on a curriculum, saying this is what we saw, this is what's out there, this is what's in our curriculum, this is the roadmap to start implementing. And with the side note that you can't do it at once. You can't just change. We can't go to forestry and say, you're lacking 80% of what we think is out there. Change it next year because it takes so long anyway at the university to do it. So start next year. You must do your homework. You must do your environmental scanning. And this is what the engineers really do for a living almost. And the industrial engineers and process engineers do that. And we can use more of those techniques in, I think, curriculum development. And that's what my research masters focus on. So I don't know got the answers yet, but I'm going to try and implement it to see where the gaps lie, comparison-wise, and to get industry stakeholder input to say, are those gaps correct? And then we can seriously say, one by one, what do we implement in our curriculum if we do a program renewal process? And that should include not just the hard science or the hard technologies. It should also include some soft aspects. I think that's going to be, in that mix, there's going to be many of those as well. Say again?
No, sorry, you said soft, so then I said
yeah, professional. So those aspects will be in the mix as well. You can't just look at new technologies and things that happen in industry, because next year there's another batch of them.
Thanks, Albert, Jan-Petrus. Any other questions? I see Jan-Petrus has got another one. Nobody else? Over to you again.
Thank you so much. So as a next degree studying person, I'm involved with Cillié and by chance in their engineering technology. So don't ask me how I got there, but I'm there. So the point is, last year I experienced how engineering there does this kind of thing, and they've got they are massively innovative, and how they got there is to partner with industry. So I think that's something that maybe faculties are not involved in. As far as I understand it, I say this, with necessary respect and everything, but, it's they make it their job to get that, connection. And so what they, for example, do is kind of like a buffer between what you are saying, from final year to world of work. Like now you have to jump, and then what? But they actually have created a whole system of like a buffer year, where they involve the industry. So it's almost like a post-degree thing, where students work in teams with industry, and they have these retired, entrepreneurs or engineers or people in the solar industry or whatever the innovation is, to mentor these young people. So it's a brilliant after-training opportunity, and it seems to be working unbelievably. I mean, every year they're developing new, and the teams have to report, and there's a whole big colloquium every year, and the industry come, and there's exhibitions, but it was born from the faculty. Obviously, the university supports that big innovation entrepreneurship. So that's maybe just something that came up to me, is maybe that's what's needed, is not just, okay, learn what you can, now go forth. But look, we provide even something else.
Yeah, the input from external stakeholders into your entrepreneurial capstone project or journey is crucial. And we've got the lucky element now that we've got in the third year, that 7 to 8 to 9 month period, where we have students don't have a choice. They have to stand in industry and try to deliver what they've learned so far, which is not so much. I mean, they still learn a couple of things in the fourth year, but they get immersed in that. The winter school after that is a place where we want to bring also current entrepreneurs in the wine industry, and so to interact with them and so forth. So yeah, this is not a lecturer alone type of project. I think that's one of the things I want to say and it doesn't also have to be a faculty or a department alone project. Some of these shared things can be done between faculties and between departments. Because all of us has different networks. Some of us has strong engineering networks, some of us has very strong legal networks in the fraternities and people that work on IP, on aspects on the legal side, which we need. I mean, I have to teach my students about IP a little bit and can't just use INNOVUS all the time for it. So if you have a law firm that can do that, or somebody that executes in the wine industry, much better, and they want exposure to students as well, so this is a win-win for us. So I agree fully. I think it's the ecosystem that you build around these initiatives are quite crucial. It's not just a curriculum and an offering. That's a very important. The practical element is very important.
Andre, okay, last one to Andre, and then I'm going to hand over to Antoinette.
Firstly, thank you so much. It's a wonderful example of curriculum renewal. I just want to ask about the difficulty of curriculum renewal. It's one thing to create a new module form, it's a different thing to work across years and change. And there could be arguments made that, okay, entrepreneurial skill set, that's important, but we've got multilingualism that's important, we've got diversity training and things that are important. So could you talk a little bit about the resistance and how to navigate that? Because even just learning the outcome speak is difficult. But to work across a program is difficult. And then when programs intersect across a faculty and across faculties, there are so many potential hindrances that people often just say, no, wait, that's too complicated.
Yeah, so I can only speak from a very practical implementation point of view, is that this is an elephant that you should really do in small, very small bites. And really what I saw is that if there's a will to implement small things, it led to, I mean, we never envisaged that we would change 3 modules, and I think we're almost taking up 40% of those modules each year with this entrepreneurship initiative. But it's not just that. We've also, I was able to sell to the department that we're getting other skills implemented as well. This is part of because that courses are specifically there to supplement and augment the experience of students in theoretical modules, like literature, scouting, there's some leadership aspects, marketing aspects. It's our space that we can move in. So I think if you don't create that space somewhere in a program or in a module, and now I'm talking in a difficult space, but how do you create space? 2 things. First, take away the redundancy. Secondly, I don't think it is possible to do it, and I'm going to make quite a controversial statement. I think we reverted too quickly and too vigorously to this face-to-face mode of doing things. Because it's limited to the timetable, it's limited to space, it's limited to time that students spend on courses. Many of my colleagues, and I speak from experience in some other departments as well, have just taken off their stuff from Sunlearn because they want students in class. If we do that, we're not going to renew anything, because a lot of opportunity space here is to put material on there and to let students use ChatGPT and AI tools to navigate certain questions, certain outcomes. to actually put it in a space where, yes, it takes some time in the credits and time it takes, but it's not part of the module and the constraints of even the curriculum. And I think that space, if we don't explore that space alongside the curriculum, we're going to not succeed. We were lucky, to maybe make a final statement, that we had a curriculum renewal a few years back, and then we had spaces that was not filled, and we had colleagues that went away. For instance, I made this change in my career, so I was dedicated to it. So it was a little bit of alignment of stars. And I fully agree with you. If stars don't align in many departments and indeed in programs, this will be difficult. So I fully agree with you. But let's not return to where we were before COVID. Let's use this, and I see it in industries and in entrepreneurship. There's so much opportunity space that we're not harboring. And that's a controversial statement. I know I'm not in the management side of things. That's one thing of me saying it here, but the other thing of managing it. But we need to augment that spaces if we want to win here.
Great. So I've got the easy job to close the session. And to thank Albert for a brilliant talk. I think you'll agree with me. Nicoline also mentioned this idea of opening up, making connections, whether it's within the faculty, between faculties, with industry. And I really think that's the future, not going it alone. And I think the other thing that you brilliantly also demonstrated through this is the entrepreneurial mindset and culture. And I remember when we formulated that game changer, or had to give a little bit of meat to it, Duresh, Prof from Jagannath, worked together with Prof Stan and with INNOVUS. And I think INNOVUS also had a specific idea about entrepreneurship and spin-off companies and those types of things. But what we wrote into the proposal was very much this entrepreneurial mindset and culture of not just, it doesn't mean you're going to be an entrepreneur, but you need to have that mindset to do curriculum renewal, to do program renewal, to do all of these things at the university. So I think that mindset, and it's not just a student issue, it's a lecturer issue, it's all of our business, this entrepreneurial mindset. So I think it's brilliant what you're doing, Albert, and thank you so much for your very stimulating talk today, and good luck, because I think it is very challenging. With that, I would like to remind you about the attendance register and the feedback form, as well as the food. Please have a snack before you leave. And then last but not least, please mark this date in your calendars now, the 31st of August. Prof. Marianne Ungere from the Division of Physiotherapy, Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences, will be talking on curriculum renewal. I don't think we've got a final topic yet, but please mark it on your calendars. That's going to be our third teaching, learning, assessment seminar for the year, the third of the four. So thank you again, Albert, and thank you to everybody attending for venturing out in the cold and wet. Stay warm.